3 simple things, and I think we can start a project or start thumbnailing it, and then probably really get started on it on Wednesday. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yep.
And then what I tend to do is once we're working on a project, you know, be working on it for the next week or so, whatever. I'm also still introducing new tools, and sometimes you guys will you want to do certain things in this project or whatever, and if it fits into it, and it usually does, then I'll show that technique or whatever, and we'll start adding to our tool set. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I was just looking at these and they look pretty good to me. This one needs a reflection, obviously. Who's this? Brandon. Where's Brandon? Okay, I'm moving on. This one, who's this? This is Isaac. Where's Isaac? You're not here? Okay, I'm moving on.
I'm here.
I think
Okay.
I heard him.
Yeah, Isaac's here.
Why does it always take everybody so long to answer those? What I never understand. Am I missing something?
Sometimes when you have the chat box open and you push the space bar when you're trying to talk, it just moves the icon around instead of actually like allowing the mic to open. So sometimes that's why it takes me forever, at least.
Oops. Okay. Hang on a second. This one here, not that one. This one, you can see where we needed to use the skew tool. Can you guys see that with the reflection? Which would mean it would just go. And I just want to reiterate this. I'm just going to half-ass this. So let's go here. So when you had this separated, we would go edit, transform, skew. And that would just let us pull that over. Does that make sense? Everybody remember that set of tools in under edit?
Yes.
Other than that, it looks pretty good.
Hey, Professor.
Yeah.
I was having trouble with my assignment.
Okay, let's look at it.
Yeah.
Where are you at? Here you are. I got 2 from you. Is that right?
Yeah. I just wanted to show you like where my problem was.
Oh, I see here.
Yeah. So like for the background, I couldn't use a gradient tool for some reason. I think like I didn't make a separate layer, I think.
Oh, if you didn't make a separate layer, yeah, you're screwed.
Yeah. And I wasn't like because I remember in the video you were telling us to rename the layers, and I wasn't doing that in the first place, so I got like confused at the end.
Okay, so you're sort of answering your own question, right?
Yeah, but I just wanted to like
so I mean with the gradient thing or whatever,
yeah.
You would, you know, you want to keep this.
Oh, okay. I see.
And then what I usually do is I'll put a layer, like I'll fill this layer with white.
Yeah.
And then I'll just put just to opaque it out, right?
Uh-huh.
And then I'll put a layer over it. And I'm doing all this stuff because I want to keep ultra control over everything. And then I'm going to go to my gradient tool right here. And I'm going to go, I like to go, I mean, you could use black to white, but I like to go color to transparent. And then pick my whatever color it's going to be. I'm just grabbing that because it's there. And then there it is. Right?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Now the next part of this is you're going to want to either go just drag this down to your plus sign down here and make a copy of it. You could do it that way. Another way you could make a copy of your camera for the reflection. What the hell? Hang on. get rid of this one. Is you could just click it and hold Option and drag it, and that'll make a copy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then I'd have to go to the one, I put this behind it, and then just go Edit, Transform, Flip Vertical. And then I'm going to come in here and use the Skew tool again, right here, Edit, Transform, Skew. Pull it up.
I think when I was transforming it, the duplicate kept showing up in the front.
Well, you got to drag the layer behind each other how you want them.
Oh, okay, okay.
So right here, you can see my layers, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I can drag this in front of this. I can drag that. It's just like a stack of papers.
Okay, okay,
Okay.
okay. Got it.
And then this one, I'm just going to do what we did before. I'm going to go create a layer mask, go back to gradient, switch this now to black and white, or black to white. Oops. Why is it? Oh, I have it turned off. I'm on the wrong layer. Sorry. Let me get rid of this. Always make sure that you're not on the wrong layer. So here's the actual layer. I'm going to click my layer mask, go to my gradient. It's black to white or white to black. Now, see, it looks like it's a little bit backwards there. So if you notice, this is going white to black. I actually want to go black to white because remember, the black is what's going to start pulling things out. Watch. See that? So the black is going to start masking things out. So you have two options here. One goes black to white. One goes white to black. You're going to want black to white. Okay.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Because these aren't due till Wednesday.
Okay, okay.
Because I figured, yeah, actually, you guys are having way less problems than I expected. Because this is the first thing we do that we're sort of, haven't actually used these tools and make them work doing something. So usually I expect more trouble. Who else? Anybody else have anything specific? Well, whose is this?
Hi, that's mine. I wasn't sure if we were supposed to turn that in or not.
Well, the other thing is that there's no layer mask here, correct?
No, it's masked.
In what way? What's masked?
The girl I masked. And then
How come I'm not seeing through her into the clouds?
I accidentally did it the other way around.
Oh, so you revealed the clouds without her. Yeah?
Yes.
See, I have to know because I have to make sure you know how to use that tool.
So I masked the girl. Like I used the masking layer for the girl, and then I
Okay, here's what I
the
want.
clouds were behind it.
Here's what I want you to do. Hang on. And by the way, I'll show you a way to select hair probably next week where you can get pretty precise with it. So here, oops. Now, there's different ways you can do this, obviously, but here's kind of the gist of it. Get rid of this thing. It always pops up in my... All right. Here's my clouds. I'm going to take my clouds and drag them into here. Make them bigger. Then I'm going to put these underneath. So I got to unlock that. Pull this down. And then I want to make a layer here. Let's get rid of this. So here's my layer mask. Then I want to get a brush. I like to use this just a soft brush for this. Now I'm going to drop the opacity. And then, is that too much? Hang on. That's weird.
You got to make it black.
Oh, thank you. And start to reveal that underneath. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I did it the other way around. So
Did you go out here?
Yeah, my masking layer looks
Oh, that's
like
fine. If you did that, that's
girl.
fine.
Okay.
But the masking tool made sense, correct?
Yeah. I just did it
Okay.
the other way around.
Because we're gonna do what I want to start today is I want to start a movie poster. Doesn't have to be a movie poster, by the way. I just use that as a broad term. Could be a book cover, could be a, I don't know. You give me, whatever you want. But I want something that has elements like that in it. I want to build it from found elements and start using all the tools that we've started. Just kind of like how I did that movie poster last week. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And again, it could be a book cover. It could be, now I usually say like it could be the poster for a game release or something like that. But what I don't want is just a bunch of, because I get this sometimes, a bunch of like cartoon characters in a poster. I want something a little more difficult. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really care what the subject matter is. I just want to think of it as a poster and have multiple elements in it and some sort of design to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and this could be any photos that we take from the internet, correct?
In the internet, you could use, I've had people use themselves and put themselves in the movie. I don't care.
Okay, cool.
Or go shoot your friends. Go, hey, I need somebody with an umbrella doing this. I want to separate it out and do that. Then go shoot it.
Got it. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's pretty much up to you how you do it. You could, you could have elements of things you've created in other classes or something. As long as it's, what happens sometimes I get people and they go find a bunch of, I don't know, Pokemon characters, and they just, in their own white backgrounds, they select them out, they stick them all in it, and they go Pokemon. They put the logo in it. So I'm not looking for that. Does that make sense?
What if we put
No. What if we what?
what if we take like a picture of us and then we put the Pokemon with us?
Look, as long as it's complicated enough, I'm cool with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm teasing you.
I don't like Pokemon, but I'm not going to mark you down for it. If we were talking about a real design, like if this is more design driven, I would totally mark you down for it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I just go, wow, your eyes aren't very sophisticated if you think that stuff looks good. Because it doesn't. What button do you use to fill in the back to a solid color, Brandon? Did you figure that out, or do you want me to tell you?
Could you explain it?
Sure.
Cool.
So let's say I got, I unclick this, so I've got a clear layer, and I put another layer here, let's say. If I want to fill it, remember, edit, fill. It jumped over here, hang on. And it gives me this, which is defaulted to the foreground color, so all I have to do is click OK.
All right. And
And
then
then there's a hotkey for it. If you look right here, edit, fill. I don't use this one. It's weird.
Mhm.
I use a different one, which is, I think, is Command Shift Delete, I think, or Option Shift Delete, I think is what I use. Wait, Command Shift Delete. Yeah, Option Shift Delete. Yes, it'll go either way. But maybe that one works too. I've never used that hotkey. I don't even know how I found the hotkey I use, but it's right here. Edit, fill, and we're going to talk. And then we're going to talk actually today about this a little bit. So you have this foreground color option. You could fill it with the background color and say okay, and it fills it with this swatch back here. And then I want to talk about one more today. Does that make sense?
yeah.
Okay. All right. Who else? Anybody else have trouble with this?
Yes, I had a question.
Sure.
So when I went to clone so that I can make everything look even,
Yeah.
A message popped up saying, warning, no pixels are more than 50% selected. The selection edge will not be visible. What exactly does that mean that I'm doing incorrectly?
Did you get it to act? Did you get it to work though at some point?
The clone tool?
Yeah.
Yes.
Where's yours at? What's your name? Oh, who is it? Oh,
Andrea. So I did not submit it because I couldn't complete it.
the only thing I can think of is it'll do that.
Did you want me to submit it to you?
No, you can say it's due on Wednesday, so you can just submit it on
Okay.
Wednesday. Is that good?
Yes, of course.
If you go to this clone tool, okay, by the way, you guys, did you see I just dragged this image off my desktop? Okay. And I'll talk about what this does later, but I just want you to know this. So now it's going, see how it has a cross right there where I can't do anything on this layer?
Mhm.
Yes.
Anybody know? I don't expect you to know, but see this little icon that's now in my thumbnail right there? Can you guys see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
What that's telling me is this is a smart object. Okay. And for some reason, when you drag things off the desktop, it'll usually convert it to a smart object, which we're going to use later, but I don't want to jump into that yet. So I can right click here and go rasterize layer, or I can go to the flyout right here. And it should be in here. I don't know where it is. Should be in here, actually. Hang on. Yeah, maybe not. I'm going to right click the bar and go rasterize layer. And now it's just a regular layer again. So now if you notice, I'll be able to work on it again. See that? Makes sense?
Yes.
And smart
Yeah.
layers, it's really interesting, but we'll do that later. I'll show you guys how to do a quick paint job on something and then do 15 versions of it like in 5 minutes. Okay. That's what it's good for, is stuff like that.
Okay.
But that's a little later. Okay. Now I forgot what I was talking about. What was I talking about? Oh, the clone tool. So if I go here and I go, okay, I want to start cloning here. Yeah. So what it's telling me, is it something like that you got?
Similar. So I grab the poly tool so I can make the shape, and that's when the message pops up. So it doesn't even allow me to push the clone. It's when I'm using the poly tool so that I can use the clone tool after.
So you wanted to define an area and then clone it inside of it,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
Okay. The only other thing I can think of is maybe, so let's pick an area. And I might have cloned. Like somewhere, it's two things. I could have cloned somewhere where I'm trying to clone. Let's try this. Oh, it's actually doing that. That's weird. So let's go here. And the only thing I can think of is that you didn't define an area. Does that make sense?
Oh, meaning.
It could be you didn't define an area, or it could be you were trying to clone, but you were on a different layer.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Now I'm going to show you how to do it non-destructively later. Right now, I don't want to worry about that yet.
Okay.
Because you can clone non-destructively, if I remember right. But I don't want to worry about that yet. It was probably either you didn't define an area or you're on another layer and it's going, I'm not, and you know, they just word it weird because sometimes these things look like they're worded by programmers, which they probably were.
Oh,
So
you know
just-
what? Yes, I did just check my layers and that was correct.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
I hate it when
I
I'm
think I was having the same issue. I was cloning. I'm not sure if you can clone on a transparent layer. So it was
No.
giving me difficulties.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
no,
so
Right now, you got to be, and I'll show you how to do the other thing later, but right now you need to be on the layer you're cloning.
yeah, so I eventually clicked like the camera one, the main one, and it let me do it on that one.
Well, let's look at this real quick. Okay, so if you can see here now, I'm cloning on an empty layer. So I might as well show you this now because we're going to this. Okay, so some of these tools in Photoshop, or a lot of them, they'll have certain similar or the same functions across multiple tools. Just like up here, when we grab our brush, you know, we can come right here and we can adjust the size of our brush, the hardness of our brush. We can pick a brush, all that stuff. And if I go to the clone stamp, it treats the clone stamp just like a brush also. And it treats, you know, the smudge thing sort of like a brush where I can adjust. It's all the same kind of tools. Does that make sense? So once you know one set of tools and certain things, it'll scatter across a lot of tools. So what you'll see here with the, and this stuff, I don't know when they started putting this in, but I don't think it was that long ago. So I'm going to make another layer and go, okay, I don't want to, maybe I'm going to move his eye over here or something. I'm going to make a new layer and okay, so now we're starting to talk about non-destructive editing, correct? Which means we can get rid of it if we don't like it. So here's what you have to do though. Right here, normally this tool, it's at 58%. So none of this stuff has changed. And we'll talk about this stuff later. We don't care about that. But right here where it says sample and it says current layer, that means I can only sample on my current layer, which is how the clone stamp tool used to only be able to be used. Okay. Now I can go either all layers. I'm just going to go the current layer and below. Okay. So now I'm going to go grab this eye. But if I turn this off, it's on its own layer. Okay, so what you got to remember now, all you got to remember is this just changes to current below. And the all layers means it'll sample from all the layers underneath it. Okay, so if you had multiple layers like this project we're going to start, and you want to clone something up here, you know, from down here, it'll just sample all the layers onto your new layer, which means it's non-destructive because if I come back in here and I go, I don't like this, I can just get rid of it because it's on its own layer. Does that make sense? And you're going to see that with a lot of tools now where it's going to start going, I can sample, you know, I can just be on this layer or I can add the bottom layer or the next layer, or I can add all the layer, you know, it'll ask you, or you can set it right there. And it's going to look like that in most of the tools that have that function. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
Is that same idea, can it be used for like moving something? Like if you have multiple layers that create one image and you want to move something to make it smaller and everything else won't fit once you move one layer, is it possible to move multiple layers?
Well, you can move multiple layers if I go, okay, so we have this eyeball. If I just go, I select this, hold shift or control or command, I'm sorry, and I can just move them together. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you're talking about?
Can you also make it smaller at the same time, like everything together?
Sure. You just go, so I still have all those layers selected. And now I just grab my corner tool. And it's going to, you know, because I have them both selected, they're going to scale together.
Okay, and you shift selected them?
You don't have to hold shift anymore to constrain. So what I'm doing is I'm going Command T for transform, right? And basically, it just gives me my handlebars. Now I don't have to hold shift. If I hold shift, it does the opposite of what it used to do. It lets me warp it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that answer that? That makes sense, right?
Yeah, how did you select the multiple layers again?
I just went right here. If I was selecting across layers, I would use the command the Apple button or control, whatever. And I'd hold command and click this one. And now I've selected those two layers. If they're, you know, and you can always just use a command, but if they're right next to each other, I'll just use shift. So I click one, hold shift, click the next one, and I can select multiple layers. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
But wait, there's one more thing, but wait, there's more. Now I have these two. Let's say that I always go, okay, this eyeball and this bird, I want them to live together, obviously, because now I've made an eyeball, right? Yeah, where'd you go?
Mm-hmm.
I can go right down here to this little chain link right here, and I can click that. And if you'll notice, it put a chain link on these two. So what that means now is whenever I select one of these, they're connected. They're grouped together. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
It comes in really handy, like when we start doing a multiple image thing like we're going to start, you can sort of group X amount of them together. We could also make folders. I'll talk about that Wednesday probably. Actually, I need to write that down.
That change, Professor, that change were in the same way that grouping the layers?
It is grouping the layers together.
It's the same, but
It's not a folder, so it's not a group in that way. What this is doing is just going this layer, and this layer. I want to link them together. So every time I click one, all of them are linked together. So I don't have to keep selecting multiple layers, right?
right.
And yes, you could go here. So you have one more folder down here, or a thing down here, right here. You know, and I could create a group, and I could put everything in that folder. That's like, let's say I do a bunch of work on the hair. You know, I could have all the hair stuff in that folder. So it's just, it just organizes it. Does that make sense? And then I
Right.
could just dump everything in there. And then I could go up here. So we have this auto select layer where I can just click on a layer, you know, and it activates it. I could change this if I put everything in folders. I could switch this to group. And then when I select something, everything in that group's going to get selected in that folder. Okay. So it's another way of organizing things. And it's pretty simple. I mean, you make a folder, but I'll talk a little more about it on Wednesday.
I have a question due to the auto select. I can't find that on my bar.
Hang on a second. Okay. Okay, say that again. Oh,
I can't find the auto select on my bar.
you have this bar up here, right?
Yeah, but that's not an option for me up there, the auto select, because I was trying to do the auto select layer, and
Let me see.
I couldn't
something.
find it.
I think that's a default. Hang on. Let me double check that. It might be a preference thing. Let me double check that. Because if I start going through the preferences, I'm going to get lost in that for like 20 minutes.
Yeah, I also used that search tool right there in the right corner, and I typed it in, and it didn't pop up. So I was
The one, this right here, you know,
Yeah,
I never
right
put
there.
much stock in their help or their search, really, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
I haven't used it in years, but I remember when I used to do, and I still do, like if I go up here for help, like 90% of the time it doesn't help me.
Yeah,
Now,
I
that's
used
not to
that
say
one as
don't
well.
use it or whatever, because once in a while it will. Because what it'll normally do is if I'm looking for something, sometimes this is helpful in the help thing. Like if you're looking for something,
So
I just-
I'm
see
looking
what it'll
at,
do right here? Like it'll point to where these things are under help.
Mhm.
You see that? So
Yeah.
sometimes it's helpful, but sometimes it's not.
I was gonna say, are you on the move tool itself? Because the second I clicked on the move tool, it showed up on my bar for
Oh, that's
everything.
interesting.
That
Oh,
is
you're right.
interesting.
Because if I go to
Let me
other
check.
tools, it's not there. So yeah,
Huh,
try the
let
move
me
tool.
see.
I thought it just came up under everything. I didn't know that. Learn something
You
every
know
day.
what? You're a genius. I do see it.
There you
I
go.
do see it. Okay, so it just won't pop up on other tools.
Yeah, which I didn't know. I thought it was always there.
So did I until I thought about it. I'm like, maybe it's just on one of the tools itself.
It makes sense it'd be the move tool because that's really what you're using to select.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, who else had problems?
Did you get my PSD that I sent to you,
Hang on.
Alonso?
Oh, there it is.
Ricky?
Let me see.
Yeah.
So what's the problem?
The problem was at the beginning after using the pen tool, and if you have holes in the selection, how do you put those together with the other?
Okay, number one, you're using like shape tools, which I wouldn't use yet because that's a different tool set.
Yeah, when I was trying to make the using the pen tool to make the selection, it became like a shape. Yeah, and I did something there with.
Okay, the problem here is that that's a shape tool, so it just automatically filled it. We want to use selection tools, not shape.
Okay. Yeah, because when I made the use the pen tool to make the path and to make the selection, I went to the select and select the inverse, but
You don't want to go to select. You want to go once you make so here's your work path, right? Or one of them. See that?
Right.
All you got to do is go on the thumbnail, command click it, and it makes a selection.
Right. Yeah, that was working.
You don't want to do a shape thing. So what you probably did here's what you probably did. So see right here where it says path?
Right.
That's what we want to be on. You were on shape.
Okay, I got it. Probably that was.
So just use the path.
Okay. Yeah, because in that way, when I trying to delete the background, I couldn't delete the background.
Yeah. That's just make sure that's on path.
Okay.
Not
got
shape. Okay.
Thank you.
I just screwed that up. Hang on. Okay. But that's it. That way you're just, you're making a selection out of your path.
Okay. Yeah.
The other thing, it'll sort of automatically fill it.
Got it. Yeah. Because I couldn't continue with that. And also how when you explain to us, but when you have, for example, the hole in this area right here.
The what here?
No, to this handle over here to the left side.
Oh, this one?
Right. When you made the inside, you made the pad and the selection inside. How do you put together to eliminate?
You don't have to. If I make a selection or a path, I'm not going to do the whole thing. But let's say this part of the path is this.
Right.
And then I go in here and go, I got to get the interior of this.
Exactly. Yeah.
So when I go over here, so now see how they're both there? When I go over to my path and I go same thing, command click the thumbnail, it just selects both of them.
Both at the same time. Okay. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Oops.
Professor, were you able to get my file? I didn't see you pop it up.
If you put it in there this morning, I should have it.
I put it in there like midnight. So yeah.
Here's everything I downloaded.
Yeah, mine is the last one.
Oh, okay. Do you have a problem?
No, it was
That was
answered. It was answered.
No, I'd say knock down this light a little bit here. It's a little bright still.
A little bit more, okay.
Yeah. If you already put some light or something over that and knocked it down a little bit, then you probably, did you do that already?
Yeah, I have.
Okay,
I could probably go back to. Okay.
It's not like, again, it's just an exercise to make sure that you're understanding the tools. Does that make sense? I just want to make sure that nobody's getting, wait a minute, I don't understand this, because then it'll screw us up when we move forward. Okay.
Yeah. But other than that, do you have any other critiques on it for Wednesday?
No, you already got the reflection in it. You put a shadow in it. The only thing I'd say is maybe, and this is just going to get better and better at it as you do it. See how I can see a little bit of fringe right there?
Yeah.
That's now. Yeah, so that kind of stuff. I might go in with my I don't have the PSD. Yeah. There's a thing you can do. Let me see if I can do this real crappily so I can show you. Let's go.
Well, also with the burn tool, I figured that I can't do that on a transparent layer either. So I have to go back on the
burn tool. Let me see. Yeah, I don't think it doesn't have that option. But I always try and look, and I'll look it up. There's certain tools that aren't made they're made to be on the same layer, but sometimes there's a hack or a trick or something you can do to make it work on a separate layer.
Yeah, I couldn't figure it out, so I went back to the original layer and I used the burn tool on the places that I needed, like the pen text. That's how you say it, right?
Yeah.
syntax and then the that line right there under it.
So let's close that. Let's see if this picked up the fringe. So I'm going to put my gray value behind this. And why do I use a gray value? Because I want to be able to see if there's some light or dark on it.
Right.
So it'll show me either or. It should be a little darker. I can't quite see it. There it is. So I'm going to darken it up quite a bit so I can see it because it's a white fringe. Now there's this little tool here. I don't use it all that much, but something like this I might use it on. It's under layer. And it says matting down here. And I'm going to say remove white matte. So let's see what it does. Wait, let me make sure I'm on the right layer. I'm on the wrong layer. So let's go layer, matting, remove white matte. And see how it erased some of it? Look.
Mm-hmm. Can you do that again? So
See, there it is. See the white matte?
Yeah.
That white fringe. I'm going to go down here, layer, matting, remove white matte.
Oh, okay.
Okay, sometimes that works. If you have too much of it, it's not. Sometimes you can go here, layer, matting, defringe. That one didn't do anything, so it didn't help. And then you can remove white or black matte or whatever.
Okay.
Again, it's one of those things where it's like, sometimes I'll try it and I go, oh, worked pretty good. And sometimes it doesn't. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And sometimes like in something like this is a low res image. You know, it's probably a little harder for Photoshop to deal with it because it's like, it's dealing with, you know, bad information, garbage in, garbage kind of thing, right? Oops.
Thank you.
Another trick I do, and again, you'll start using these things, so they'll start getting cemented a little more when you start using them. But like if I have just a touch of this white fringe, I might select the whole thing. Hang on. Oh, by the way, let's try something here. I just realized I didn't plug in the variable on this. So layer, defringe, then it gives me this. So what it's asking me here is it's like, how many pixels in do you want to go? So let's just go 4. It might be way too much, who knows? And go, yeah, and see how it started eating it up a little bit? Not very clean, so I probably wouldn't use it. Sometimes if I, you know, if I can sacrifice a little bit, I'll select the whole thing and then go up here to select because we're talking about a selection. And I go to modify and it has these options here. So I can contract it and it'll give me this. Same thing we just got with the other thing. But all this is doing is just going, okay, I've got this selection. You want to contract it? How many pixels? And it's just going to contract it in however many pixels I ask it to. Okay. So I'm going to say 3. It's probably too much. Oops. 3 and go, okay. Okay. See how much it went in? That would be too much. So I'll go select, modify, contract. You can expand also. And I'll go 1. And that's probably fine. But now if I hit delete, it's going to delete the camera, right? So we want to go up to select because we're dealing with the selection and go inverse. So now it's selecting the outside pixels around it. Okay. So now you can see it selected everything out here because I inverted it. The selection. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And now I can just go bink. Oops. And it should have gotten rid of my fringe. Yeah, it did. See, that worked better, right?
Okay.
Because I just ate in 1 pixel, inverted it, and got rid of that fringy stuff. So I do that a lot. See how clean it is now?
Yeah.
And then, you know, if I wanted to give the, and now you can, I don't want to jump down there. I'm jumping around too much. Okay, but that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Okay, who else? Anybody else have problems? I mean, to me, overall, they look pretty damn good. So Wednesday, I want these done. Looks like most of you are already pretty close already.
I needed some help.
Okay, what is it? Do I have it? Where is it?
Jordan.
Jordan. Am I missing it here?
A little bit down. A little, just like maybe 3 up.
Oh, right here.
One more.
The PDF.
There you go. So I kind of had problems. I wanted to copy multiple layers and then paste them for the reflection, because I had done the I believe it's not a mask. I kind of followed the video. I don't know if you've seen the reflection. There's like a white spot,
Oh, I see it.
and that's because I had copied the camera that I had cut something out of.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Well, that's just a selection thing. You'd have to go back to your original. Another thing you could do, let's say, here's an easy way to do it. Let's say that I have, like, let's say you cut this out and that's what you cut out right here, right?
Yeah.
So let's say it's this. I mean, this is just a simple way to do it. And let's say that I cut this out, X, oops. Look, see how it's got the thing? I dragged it in here. So now you got to click it and rasterize the layer. I'm going to go X, which cuts it out. And now it's on a different layer. That's kind of what you had, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't have the original image in there, which I always try and save, then what I would do is I would just do the thing we talked about earlier where I go, I want to select, okay, so I'm going, well, I need a selection for this. So I'd probably take these 2 layers, I drag them down here, both together, and it make a copy of both. Then go to my flyout menu and go merge layers. And it's just going to merge these 2 back together so I can use it to get a selection. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Yeah.
And or I wouldn't even need to make a selection. Now I could just drop it down and do my reflection, because you're not going to see it. If I have any little tiny mistakes, then you're not going to see it because it's going to be a reflection. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So if I make a copy of it and flatten them, I'm not destroying my other work. You know, I just make a copy of both of them and flatten them. Okay. And the flattening is in the flyout menu, or it's Command E.
Okay.
But remember, you've got this flyout menu right here. Okay. And by the way, these things like this stuff in the flyout menu will also be reflected usually up here. Will also be reflected, like, let's say in the toolbar. Like, there's various places where you can access your tools. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
I had another question.
Okay.
Yeah, I had one more as well. So if I had like 2 things pasted on one layer, I don't know how that happened first off, but if I wanted to make one of the objects into another layer, how would I do that?
Okay, so here's the thing. Let's say that I go, that I made this a selection. And this is selection. Or, you know, they're on the same layer. So let's go. So now these 2 things are on their own layer. Oops. Right?
Yeah.
The way I would do it. So here's the thing. If I don't care where these items are placed, all I would do is I'd just go, I'd select this, I'd go Command X, Command V, and it'll just paste it on a new layer. But see how it pasted into the center?
Yes.
So what and if it mattered that this is placed correctly, I wouldn't want to do that. So what I do is I'd probably just go, oops, I got to go back. What happened here? There we go. I would probably just do this because I want to keep the placement, correct?
Yes.
So I'd probably just go, again, drag this down and make a copy of this layer. And on the new layer, I'd get rid of something. So now if I turn this off, oops. Oh, they're still in the same layer. Hang on. I screwed up. So let's make a copy of this. I'm going to turn one layer off. So they're just a duplicate of each other now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then I'm just going to go get rid of that one. And when I turn this layer back on, now I've got them on separate layers. There it is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see. Thank you. I had one last question.
Sure.
So I was kind of having trouble with the pen tool when I was going from a curve. Like in other words, I put a point, I dragged it, made it into a softer curve, and then going directly into a straight line, like a hard edge.
Okay, well, the main thing here with that, so you mean like going, you got this, and then you want to do like this, or like, but this is a straight line, correct?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so that's, remember I told you you're either using you're either going Command or Apple key or whatever, and you can do this, correct?
Yes.
The other thing I can do is hit Option, and I get that corner tool, see it?
Yeah.
And now if I drag that over, it's going to let me just make a hard edge because that's a corner tool. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, I'll try that out. Thank you.
So it's just either Option. The two things you got to use with that pen tool, you're using the pen tool, and then when you want to adjust a thing, you go Command key, you get the white arrow tool. If you want to do a hard corner like that, Option, and it'll give you the corner thing. And now it won't affect the whole line. It just affects that hard corner. Does that make sense?
Yes, makes sense. Thank you again.
Well, it kind of helped me as well. If you like double click it, it turns into like the little white box. So you can like continue the path like that.
I always just click off of it. That's good. If that works for you, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And again, you're going to personalize these things yourself and find out little ways that you like working. As long as it has the same result, it's fine. Right?
Right.
But what we want to do is start, again, we'll start thinking a little more non-destructively, like we just talked about with the clone tool now. You didn't used to be able to do that. I think there was some hack where you could do it. It was a pain in the ass. But they over the years, especially it seems like recently, and I could be wrong, it might be longer, they've started doing that sample all layers thing now, or sample the layer below and all that kind of stuff. And it makes it much more non-destructive because I can get rid of that stuff. And when you're working on this stuff, that's a really nice, you know, when you go back to, because you'll do this all the time. At least I do it all the time. I go back and look at stuff the next day and I go, this sucks. You know what I mean? Or some move I made in there sucks, or it's too saturated, or whatever it is. You know, and I want to adjust it again now, you know, and if I have the non-destructive stuff, I have a lot of options, and I want endless options if I can get them. Okay.
Professor, when you have the pen tool, and after you made the pad and the current, if you have a hole, how do you put everything together in only one pad?
Well, you got to close the path.
Right. How to close the pad with the everything?
You just have to close the path like that.
Right.
If you're making a selection, you got to have a closed path.
Right. But if you're making that, you have a hole. How could we?
Well, you mean like we just talked about on the camera?
Yeah, basically, yeah, right here.
It would be the same thing. I just make another path. And then when I select the path, it's going to select both of them.
Got it. Okay.
You can make multiple paths. See, I can make another one. Make another one. Now, you know, if I want those for whatever reason live sort of on their own little layer here, I could do this because you got, again, this is what I was just saying. The shape, the things down here, sort of, some of them mirror what you got in your layers palette. And one of them is I can go here and create another layer from my paths if I want. But if you notice, if I click this one, they all get reactivated. And then if I go Command click the image, they all get turned into a selection.
Got it. Thank you.
But you can make separate layers in the paths palette if you want to do that, which, you know, could come in handy. And then again, I can come up here to select, save selection, and go multiple. You're going to need to do this probably in this project we're going to do. I just misspelled that, but who cares? And I go, okay, And then 2 hours later, when I go, oh, I need to reselect those,
Right, yeah.
select, load selection,
Load selection.
in multiple pass, boom. Okay.
Thank you.
Really important to start doing that because you do not, there's a couple reasons why you don't want to keep reselecting things. One of them is the obvious. It's just time consuming. The other one is if you have a precise selection around something, then you go later to, and you go, oh crap, and you got to reselect it. It's not going to be the same selection. I don't care how hard you try to do it. It's not going to happen.
Right.
I actually forgot about that on this project, and it would have came in handy.
Look, all this stuff, the reason we're going through this and we're doing exercises, I know I'm broken record, but is to get this stuff where you start using the tools and then and then it starts to become second nature.
Yeah.
You know, once you're using these, like by the time we're done with this next project or this first project, you'll have this stuff pretty down and you'll know how to think within it. That's my main problem here, or not problem. My main goal here is to make sure that you guys now know how to logic through your own problems. Does that make sense? Or you learn how to solve your own problems.
Yeah.
Again, when I learned it, they gave me step-by-step stuff, which meant I didn't know how to do anything. You know what I mean? I knew how to look at this and go, oh, if I do this and do this and do, okay, and then select, okay, blah, blah, blah. Then they go, okay, let's learn this new thing. And I'm like, I don't even know what I just did. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
why did I do that? That always drove me crazy. So I try to make sure that we're hopefully putting these tools into, you know, using them so they start to become, you know, second nature.
Yeah.
I had a really hard perspective teacher in college, but it taught me a lesson because he would just, I mean, he was a hard ass. And you'd be up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning trying to figure this crap out. And then you start getting, you know, I knew it was good, but at the same time, I'm like, holy crap, this guy's like a sadist or something. But then when I went to work, I realized that like a lot of the things he taught me, it was very deep into perspective, right? And you're going, man, this stuff's crazy. But what he really taught me is when I went out to work and I was working on a theme park and I had to figure out all this perspective stuff, I could figure it out because of him deep diving me into it, making me do this stuff until 3 o'clock in the morning. Then when I had a problem that he hadn't covered, I could figure it out. It's that same logic. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because if you can't make something out of this stuff, there's no point in it. Okay.
This is kind of random. I'm sorry, but
Go
can
ahead.
you actually record? Is there a option to record like your process on Photoshop
For you or for me?
for anyone that uses Photoshop?
You
Is
have
there
to get a
way you can-
secondary, you got to get a secondary software to do that.
Oh, okay.
Like Camtasia. And there's some free ones that just screen grab things. What do you want to use it for?
Just to like, you know, for my process and to see like what I'm selecting, because I know once you save it, that kind of goes away. So I kind of wanted to save all the things I'm using. All the
Yeah, you'd have to use Camtasia or some other screen grabbing thing.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay, I'll figure it out. Thank you.
Or I don't know, maybe well, I don't know. That's getting hard to do. There is a free version of that.
I'll look it up. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Everybody's good? Okay. So here's what I want to talk about. Now you're going to get all mad at me because you're going to go, why didn't you just show me that to begin with? But, or Irene will do that probably.
Mike, why didn't you show us in the beginning?
You don't even know what it is yet. See how you are? Okay, so let's start with this one. So obviously we're talking about a variety of selection tools here. Here's a nice one. I'm going to go to right here and, you know, and what I'll try and talk about this a little bit too, about setting up this toolbar, how you like it. If you go down here to these 3 dots, by the way, it goes edit toolbar and you can edit it right here. And I'll talk about the way they do that is weird to me, but maybe that's just me. But anyway, so right here, I've got the object selection tool. See what that looks like? Does everybody see that? Yeah?
Yeah, I'm trying to find it on my
Yeah.
toolbar.
Yeah, if you don't see it, go down here to these 3 dots and it's probably, it should, usually this will pop out. Let me click and hold. That's weird. Mine's not doing it. Hang on. It'll usually pop out if you have tools hidden. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click this and then notice right here and just leave it on that. Right here, it says lasso or rectangle. Okay. Those are my tool selection options. So, you know, I could select it with the rectangle, but I'm going to select it with the lasso. Again, it has that sample all layers thing. I don't need that right now, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just going to go and do this. I should probably go up into the legs a little more, but I'm going to try it without it. See how it grabbed that? And then I go Command C, Command V, and then, and if I would have dragged this up into the pants right there, it would have eliminated that too. And here I would have done that, but you can see it got a fairly good selection. See that?
That's really nice.
Yeah. Okay. So let's take a more complex and then look at what it did to the arm right there. Now you can adjust these things and everything. But right now I just want to keep it simple. Let's go back. And that might be the way I selected it too, by the way. Yeah. Yeah, it's probably the way I selected it. So if I was really going to do this for real, I would go to my selection tool. I would come in here. I would make a better selection. Like right here is where it might get kind of confused. So I'll come into the legs a little bit there. And I would come all the way up here and try and get all in here. It's crossing over, so I'm being sloppy. That rock right there could get confused for the shoe. So I want to make sure I'm kind of close right there. Oops, I screwed up again, but that's all right. Yeah, it does, for some reason it's not selecting that blue, so I'd have to go. Another thing I could do, so let's look at this real quick. Right here, you guys see that?
Yeah.
That's a quick mask, okay? So if I go bing, it's going to do that, and then I can go in here. So you see that red right there? That's the mask. So I'm going to take, or what it didn't select. I'm going to take a better brush because this one sucks. Shrink it down. I still can play with my opacity. I want a little more. I'm probably just going to do 100% on this. And I'm going to erase the mask off right here. So I could adjust it like that.
Is there a way to, like, you know, when you use the magic select tool,
Yeah.
is there a way to use this tool, but like make it so that the contingency, the continuous or whatever it's called, is not as strong or as weak?
When you're using the magic wand tool?
No, when you're using the magic select tool, the one that you're showing us right now.
There's ways you can adjust it. I'll get into that a little more later. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
Okay, so I'm going to now click this again. Now that's a sloppy selection, but it's fine. And you can see now I started adding things into it. I could mask things back out. Oops. And so on and so forth. Does that make sense? Oh, I know why I did that because I selected it on this one. That's why. Okay, so let's look at this now. Let's take a more complex thing. Let's take this guy. So now let's see what it does. So now you're dealing with hair. You're dealing with a background that's similar in color. This right here is the value is almost exactly the same. Oops. So let's go back. Not too bad. Not great, but not too bad. Now this part they can be forgiven for. That's pretty difficult, right? For a lot of fringe here. You guys see that?
Yeah.
Now, here's where your tools start coming into play. Like if let's do the gray trick here. Put a gray under here. There's not white fringe, but what I might do if I was going to use something like this, it's a lot better if you have a stylus for this. Hang on. I might take different smudge tools. And go in and soften up this edge a little bit. See that? You guys see what I'm doing?
Oh, you're using the smudge. Okay,
Yeah.
yes.
And I'm pulling the hair back over this a little bit so it wouldn't have that hard edge. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Mhm.
So that's where you start using your tools together, right? And you don't want to overdo it. And I don't want all this to become uniform. So I might come in here and go, let's try this one. I could pull some hair out of here. In different ways. I might pull one hair out here and there and just soften. See that right there, by the way. Oops. If I put this back into the context of some of the background, that's starting to look pretty, sorry. This right here is starting to look pretty good. Like from a distance, I'm not going to notice it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just softening up the edge. It's that I'm pulling those hairs back over the background. Because what you want to eliminate, I was just looking at this, look, this morning. Because this guy, I was looking him up because this, I don't know, I do this all the time, but this guy used to be a singer. And I was like, wonder what happened to that guy. So now he's a digital photographer or whatever, right? Oops. Hang on. And he does this thing he calls romantic realism or something. So he has these things he calls, I don't know what he calls them, but here, romantic realism. But like a lot of this stuff to me, there was one in here in particular, if I could find it. Like even here, see this guy right here? Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
He looks totally cut out. Can you guys see that?
They all look cut out.
Yeah, I agree with you. And why? Look at her hair. Look at the hair selection right here. Like I can see the dark of the background where he cut it out. That's just like Amateurville stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And yes, I agree with you. They all look cut out because they probably are all cut out. I mean, they're kind of stupid images anyway, but I don't know what they're trying to say. Look, look, here's the guy. Look how cut out that looks. Right?
Yeah, that's funny.
Look how cut out her hair looks. This right here is ridiculous. I mean, that looks so cut out. And not to mention the scale is completely wrong.
Mm-hmm.
The lighting is so bad too.
Yeah, the pool looks two different colors.
Good. This is what I liked. You guys are seeing how crappy these look.
The shadow on that, what's supposed to be that pool floaty, is just atrocious.
He used the drop shadow filter. That's why. And on top of that, why is that not reflecting into the pool?
Mm-hmm.
You know, now look, if I asked him this, here's what he would do. He would retreat into bullshit. Sorry. He will retreat into oh, that's the vision I'm trying to do. And it's like, BS, dude. That's not what you're trying to do. You just have a lack of skill, and you also have a lack of understanding of how these things work. The other thing is that pool float is also going to be sitting in the water a little bit. There's going to be a little bit probably of something happening with the reflections and the ripples around it.
There should be a reflection from the water back onto the floaty.
Yeah, exactly. There'll be a color reflection. There might even be some of those surface reflections you get on boats and stuff like that. I don't know what's going on back here. It's got a hard edge. This reflection has a hard, and it's just this. Look how hard this edge is. Like, I don't even understand what he's trying to say here, to be honest. And then here's the same guy. There it is.
And that's the same pool, but it's just a different.
Yeah, he must have had access to this pool, and he thought it was really cool because it was an infinity pool or whatever.
What's with the dog
on the left
in the bottom corner? Like, why is that there?
It's called bad composition. Ugh.
Is he making money? Because
I doubt it.
No,
that.
this one's horrible.
Like, he used a soft brush
small.
here. It's like, dude, it's just so bad.
I love it. $1,000 a piece.
All of the god rays that he's making with soft brushes just don't make any sense.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, none of this stuff.
What is all this?
This guy used to be he was in Steely Dan for a while. I mean, he was a kind of big vocalist, but his career probably petered out. And then here's why people do this. They think this is easy. And then they go, oh, I can get a digital camera and hey, I'm a photographer. And it's like, you don't know anything about image making at all. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're trying to say, and like, if I was going to do this kind of thing, I would hire the models and I would shoot this on location and light it and just shoot it. And then maybe I'd fiddle with it and make it a little more hyper surreal or whatever you want to do. Like, there was a guy who shot these but this guy was amazing, but he was shooting a lot of these poolside scenes, but you know, in Palm Springs and all these places that were interesting. Damn it. Let's see if we can find this, which I think is kind of what this guy's trying to do. But Slim Aarons was a badass. You see what I mean?
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Nice.
That's a real party with real cool
Yeah.
people. You know what I mean? In like the 60s or whatever. He only shot fabulous people, basically.
I love the little roller.
Oh, I love that. I love that picture.
It was all these wealthy, like very much the end of an era kind of thing.
Mhm.
Like, I want to be that fabulous.
Nice. Yeah.
And then he would shoot, let's see, one. Look at this one. I think that thing
Okay.
sank at some point. I think I heard. Let me see if I can find one more.
Oh, that's nice.
Anyway, I think he's trying to do something like that, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And failing miserably.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm feeling.
Anyway, this is a cool guy to look up. Slim Aarons. He's a cool dude. There's actually a documentary on him, I think on Netflix or something like that. Okay. All right. So we'd have to combine what I'm saying is we'd have to, you start to have to combine maybe softening an edge and things like that to make them live in the same universe. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And then beyond that, if I have all this warm sunsetty light on this guy, if I put him in some environment, it doesn't make sense with a light, just like what you guys were just pointing out, how that lighting and all those images didn't make any sense. We don't want to do that, right? We want to make sure, and because what we're going to start doing is going to be something where we're going to have to put things and make them make sense. Okay, let me see if I can find my I have a post on this.
So that tool is kind of like a freehand pen tool.
It's just an automatic
Somewhat.
selection tool, but what I'm trying to make you understand is that like sometimes the background and the foreground are going to be so close or confusing. It's only going to do so much, which is why I don't show you guys this in the beginning, because if I show people this in the beginning, they start using this all the time and you're like, your selections suck. Because sometimes
Yeah.
you got to go in with the pen tool if you want to get really precise. Sometimes you want to use that polygon lasso tool if it's just something really simple,
Mhm.
so on and so forth. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And once in a while, the magic wand tool will work, not very often. Once in a while it will. But my point is that usually these tools, you're going to have to use them in conjunction with each other. But what people think they go into, people don't know any better. They think you go into Photoshop and Photoshop just does everything automatically. You know what I mean? That's what people who don't do this think. I had a person I worked with and she was horrible. And we were on some crazy deadline and I hated her. And she goes, this really made me angry, by the way. And I go, yeah, I'll get it done by tomorrow or something. She goes, and she's acting all panicked. And it was due to the next day. It was fine. And she goes, well, don't you just have a button on there you can press and it's just done? You know what I mean? And I go, get out of my office. I go, clearly you don't understand this. Don't ever talk to me about this again. And you will get it tomorrow and leave me alone. If you come back in here again, I'm throwing you out of here for good. It was just like a ridiculous comment. Okay. And on top of that, it was just something that didn't need to be that fast. But anyway, and I'm pretty fast. I mean, I'm really.
I get you because I showed my aunt like the picture that the camera that we like the end result comparing to the original, and she's like, "Oh, that looks fun. It looks pretty fast." And I'm like, "No, it took some time.
It'll get fast, but it'll get fast." Here's the thing everybody has to understand. Yes, you got to learn the software. It's not about the software. It's about all your knowledge about how to use this software. The software, just learning these tools. I mean, you guys can see already probably at this point, it's like you can teach a monkey that. It's using them that becomes valuable and your knowledge that becomes valuable. And a lot of that knowledge is going to come from your other classes. Maybe it's color theory, maybe it's painting, maybe it's whatever, where you're understanding light and you're understanding how things work and all that. And then you bring that into here with these tools and then it becomes powerful. Okay. It's like, I always think of that image of a monkey with a gun. And like when you give somebody with no artistic background Photoshop, it's a monkey with a gun. Like they don't know what they're doing. It's dangerous. You know what I mean? They just have enough knowledge to make ugly stuff. Okay. You got to have the image making part of this equation in there too. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's one. Here's another thing. So let's do this. So now let's go to the same tool right here. Only let's switch it to rectangle. So it's still made basically the same selection. Okay. Which is kind of interesting. So, a lot of times I'll just try it made basically the same selection. It's not bad. And then I have to clean up this down here and all that kind of stuff. Now, the reason this wouldn't bother me as much is no matter what I do with this image, whether I selected it with the pen tool and I got all precise, I'm still going to get more or less this kind of thing. And I'm going to have to go in and tweak it anyway. So this tool might work fine for this because I know I'm going to have to do a lot of work to make it actually work. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, that all makes sense, correct? So let's look at another thing. Let's open this one. And I just grabbed some stuff, so I have no idea if this will work good or not. Okay, so let's go and decide we don't like this bird out right here, maybe, or maybe this one. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to make a selection. I'm just going to use my polygon tool. Okay, so we've been using this edit and then fill to come in here and basically use our foreground color, correct? Now we're going to go down to this one that says content aware right there. Now I'm going to go, okay. And see how it made that pigeon disappear?
Wow, I love that.
And you know, this has got perspective in it. So sometimes that'll throw it a little bit. Let's try another one. Let's go edit. Don't go to content aware here or content aware fill yet. If you do that, you're going to get more tools here to tweak it, which is great, but we'll worry about that later. So I'm just going to go to edit. Ugh. Fill or fill content aware. Now I just got rid of that guy. There's a little bit of ghosting right there, but that's not too bad. Works really good with textural things. Like, let's see if we can do something with, let's see what happens if we do it here. Yeah, it pulled it works really good with, like, if I had random stuff down here, especially textural stuff. It works good with a lot of stuff, like this little leaf or whatever it is. It'll easily get rid of that. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, it's a really nice tool. And we can adjust it, you know, and we'll get a little more into that in a little bit.
In this occasion, you don't need to sample. You don't need to get like any like a similar to using the clamp tool.
No, it makes a decision. The reason it's called content aware is it knows what's around it and it just samples that around it and it makes a decision. I've used it actually for stuff that's pretty complicated and it works pretty good. You know, and sometimes it doesn't. And then you got to figure out a different solution, right? Or you got to doctor the fix or whatever. You know, let me see what this is. Ugh, I got a department meeting this week. Me no likey. Okay, so let's see what I got here.
Water.
Okay.
Where is my water?
Hey guys, give me 2 seconds here. I'll be right back.
Tonight.
I'm currently shook by this content aware fill thing. I've never heard of it before and it's amazing.
Okay, let me look my notes again. Oh, okay, so up here. Okay, so that makes sense, correct?
Yeah.
For now, we're just doing it under fill and we pick Instead of foreground or a background color, we pick content aware. Okay. And you're going to start seeing, well, see content aware in other tools. Okay. And one thing I want to talk about real quick here is if you go under window, workspace, and I can go new workspace, and it's just going to give me an option to name it basically. And I name it, right? So I've got one that I did here, you know, that I did a long time ago, this workspace mic right there, right? So when you get your tools sort of set where you like them, and the good thing about this is like a lot of times you'll start working and you'll start getting sloppy and you'll start getting all this kind of stuff floating around. Now, if you have it docked over here, it'll happen less, obviously. But you guys have all done this, correct? Where you start getting windows floating all over the place. And if I go up here back to window, workspace, mic, that's weird. It should go, oh, here it is. I went to reset mic and put all my tools back the way they're supposed to be. Does that make sense? So it automatically puts them back over in the thing. Because sometimes I will pull a palette out, you know, for whatever reason. And then I'll end up with like 4 or 5 of them on my thing and it starts getting in the way. You go back, reset your workspace, all back to square one. So you got a nice clean workspace again. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so here's what I'm going to want you to do by Wednesday. We are going to start our movie thing, right? Oops. Okay. Now, obviously you can see they probably got assets. Here's the guy. You guys can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes.
Irene?
I can. Can you hear me?
Why?
Where
Hello?
did we go?
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Hello.
You guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do.
And so you can see my screen, correct?
Mhm.
Yes.
Irene, say something. I want to make sure I'm hearing you guys.
Can you hear me? Hello. Test, test, test.
We're all talking.
Hello.
I'm not hearing anything. Oh, there it is. It was me.
Mike.
Anyway, you guys can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can see that, you know, this is probably separated out, put into this situation. The whole thing was given a monochromatic scheme, color scheme. And we've talked about this. Now here it works really well, this bluish, because this is obviously in the ocean or something, but it also makes it a lot easier for that person to put these assets into the same image. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Like for all we know, that character, the diver or whatever, might have been in totally warm light or whatever. And once you like pull the whole thing monochromatically, it just, you know, ties everything together really nicely. Does that make sense? When you have disparate elements, okay? The next one is separated out, again, to separate out elements that have been assembled, right? And I want a title in this too, by the way, like some sort of title. Oops, hang on. Different approach, looks much more illustrated, might be illustrated. I think it is illustrated, but you can also get that kind of, this probably going a little further, but just a different approach. And also taking each character, the main thing with this is taking each character and assigning a monochromatic, more or less monochromatic color for each one, which is that little trick that we did in hue saturation with the little box that changes the whole thing to whatever your foreground color is. That's what that is. Okay. Now, this one I always use as an example of really bad movie poster design. Look at this hard edge on his head right here. And this hard, and this is a total hack Photoshop job. Can you guys see that?
Mhm.
Yeah.
It was terrible, right? Now, if they actually used this, which I'm assuming they did, and then the faces in the background, reduced them to black and white. Probably did an overlay or maybe just reduce the opacity. Another, you see that all the time, movie posters. You always have the big floating heads all the time. And then what irritates me about this is this person put this glow on here and probably put a little bit here. And he was doing that because he's like, oh, see, it's a soft edge and it's catching glow, so I don't have to really do a good selection. That looks terrible, okay? I don't even know how that happened. Another one where they're just combining assets, heightening things, smoking out the background, you know, and there's the Dobby peeking in like that dog was peeking in on the other one. Right? Okay, a little more. I never have a bigger image of this for some reason. Oops, hang on. See if I can make this bigger. It doesn't let me. You know, again, monochromatic scheme, probably more just to emphasize darkness, moody nighttime. Also to give me a cool where I can pop that big, all that orange and flame in there. Really makes it dramatic, okay? But also means that the cloud reference that he used in there or she used in there, it all starts to live in the same environment really fast because those clouds almost, I mean, for sure, were not in this color scheme, right? So it solves a lot of problems. It looks really cool. Like what you don't want to do is make these kind of decisions because you're just like, you're just making them because it's like, oh, I'm gonna make everything the same color. It's also got to work in the design, but in this case it does. And with the whale one, it does and all that kind of stuff. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then this one's just sort of a classic montage. Obviously stars of the film, cloudy background, nice diagonal cutting through here. This was probably added in. And then softening these edges, you know, they probably had this reference and soften these edges against the boat because you don't want a hard edge, obviously. I just saw somebody, by the way, he makes these little wood like magnet things. Don't ask me why, but he does. And he goes, hey, look at this one I just did. And it's like pictures of the trees up here. And he's all proud of it because he used Photoshop and it's really bad. I mean, all the trees got this super, it looks like somebody cut them out with scissors. Okay. And then I think he added like a glow to it. It's a total mess. You know what I mean? He's really proud of it. So I didn't say anything. And his type choices are awful. I mean, it's just awful. It's really awful. Again, somebody who just knows a little bit about Photoshop and also doesn't have a sophisticated enough eye to go, dude, that looks terrible. Does that make sense? Because that's the other part of this thing is you got to know, your eyes got to be sophisticated enough. And that's experience. Get sophisticated enough to know what looks good, right?
Yeah.
And you probably already have this happening to you guys. I'm sure you can look at things that you used to like a couple of years ago. Now you look at it and you go, God, that's so cheesy. Like, why did I like that? You know what I mean? Which is good. If that's happening, that's good. Doesn't mean you can't still like those cheesy things, but you need to know they're cheesy. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, hang on. I'm looking at my notes. One of these things I'm going to go over on Wednesday. Okay, so here's the last thing. Here's what I want. I want your camera thing finished on Wednesday. And then I just want this. And don't get all flipped out if you don't draw for this. You don't need to draw good for this. But I need to see something so I can approve what you're going to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So all I need is some thumbnails. And it could be, here's Brad Pitt. He's holding a martini. And there's a bouquet of flowers in front of him. And title. I just need to know what you're going to do. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Think about this when you do this. When you're doing this, think about where that title is going to go. Let's say I'm doing a ship. Maybe, and then maybe my ship reflects down and it reflects down and it becomes something else. You know, they always do that. So maybe my ship, you know, reflects down, it becomes a skull or something. I don't know. That's splitting down the middle, by the way. Look what I just did, which is the worst thing you can do, but that's fine for now. Maybe I put something here, and then my title's here. But think about where your title's going to be, or your text or whatever, so you don't start designing without thinking about that. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And I don't really need much more than this. Just make sure I can tell this is a human or whatever it is. I don't really care.
That does not look like Brad Pitt anymore.
No, now it's some, I don't know, some sad person. I'm not sure. Some sad person drinks too many martinis.
Are you projecting, Mike?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm projecting to the time, and this is true, that I drank too many martinis at my house, and I fell down the stairs, and I think I cracked my tailbone.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that was painful. Anyway, so here's my elements, right? Same thing here. You know, maybe I've got a car coming here. If you're going to do a car, just really keep it simple. It's my car. Here's my whatever. Here's the road coming into the scene. Actually, it should be over here. You know, here's my title. There's a bridge back here. Maybe it's the Golden Gate Bridge. I got a car, and that's what these are going to be lit up, and I'm going to get a shine on the thing in front of it. And then I would come in here, just tighten them up enough where they're readable, and that's it. Does that make sense?
When did you want these by?
Wednesday.
Okay.
Because they just got to be really simple. Give me at least 3 ideas. I'm not going to beat that to death because, again, this is a mechanics class. And then the next phase of this is going to be that you could start this too. Wait till I approve it, probably. You're going to have to go find some decent assets. Does that make sense? Like there's certain things like that. Probably that cloud image might be a big image. Make sure when you're searching in Google that you go to and you tell it to search only large images. Does that make sense? You know, if you go get one of these little tiny images and then you try and blow it up, it's going to just fall apart. Okay. Scale wise, probably don't want to be under about 9 inches by 11. So we would go here. And there's a ratio for movie posters. I'm not going to worry about all that. If you want to use the ratio of movie poster, that's fine. And obviously don't go that big. Just use the ratio smaller. I don't want this any smaller than about 9 by 12. Okay, that's fine. So I would go File, New, right here. And I'm going to switch from pixels to inches. Then I would just go, is that the width? Width 9. Height 12. Right, and 72 is fine. And there's my workspace. You might go, movie poster's a little longer because it is. Hit your crop tool, pull this down a little bit, and that's fine. It doesn't have to be super accurate on the. I just don't want it tiny. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then we'll start. I'll go over those on Wednesday. I want to get. I'll put this up under assignments. What's that?
Portrait orientation, the portrait.
Yeah, I think because it's a poster, I do portrait.
If
you have a solid idea for doing horizontal, like I don't think you're ever going to see a horizontal movie poster unless it's existing online or something. Because at the theaters, they're just not set up for horizontal. You know, they're set up for vertical. Plus, traditionally, they just always move. But again, it doesn't have to be a movie poster. It could be a lot of things, right? Again, book cover, could be a poster for something else. Could be a poster for a music festival. I don't care. Okay. I just want that format. The reason I open it up and I make it a little wider than just movie posters, that you're going to do movie posters in a lot of classes. So I'm cool with switching that out. Subject matter, I really don't care about. If you want to make up the movie, make up the movie. It's probably better if you do. Because then you can just go ahead, you can, that way you can make imagery you like making, right? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Right.
300 DPI, right?
You're probably going to be using 72 DPI images, so I probably just stick with 72.
Okay.
But if you scale it, so now we know we're in the 72 DPI environment. So if I go out and I get, let's try this. Oh, I want to show you one more thing. I just realized it. So this, if that's as big as that's going to live before it pixelates, right? That might be big enough. If I'm just going to have him in the side or something like that. If you pull something in here and it's like this big, it is not going to work. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to show you one more thing here that'll come in handy for this, probably for this project too. And all the things I'm showing you today, if you notice, are fairly simple. They're just, tools. Let's take this. Wait, this. This. So I am going to make a new layer. Let me look at the chat real quick. Where'd it go? There it is. Okay. Okay, I'm on this new layer. I'm going to get a ratty brush. So let's see if this is good. I'll just keep it black. Oh, this is a smudge tool. Crap, now it's got to think for a second. Hang on. It's got to think.
Broke it.
Hmm?
You broke it.
No, it's when you use a really big smudge, it'll think forever. It's weird because there's not even anything for it to smudge. So that's weird. Let's see if I can do this. Yeah, there we go. So let's reopen it. And by the way, Irene, I don't need your sass back.
I can't help it. It just comes out all the time.
Oops, wrong thing. Let's get rid of this. Get rid of this. And here we go. Okay, so let's try this again. I gotta make a new layer. I gotta get a brush, that looks okay. And I'm just making a shape. Now, here's the weird part of it. The only thing you got to remember is this is a mask, okay? It's a clipping mask. You think it should be on top. It's not. It has to go underneath your image. Can you guys all see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then I'm just going to go, so it's underneath the image. I'm going to go Option, and then see how it does that? And there it is. It applied the mask. You see that?
Yes.
Really nice if you want to get, you can use anything you want, but like in this case, I could kind of get a torn paper edge. By the way, I can come back in here and paint the mask in. Like, let's go smaller here. And I could paint some of this in. And look how the edge changed because I made it smaller. So I get a little bit of variety in here that's not just the same thing. Or I could go to eraser and I can erase some of it out. And so on and so forth. Does that make sense?
Could you do the layer one more time?
Sure. So let's get rid of the mask. Or let's just make a new mask. Making a new layer. I just make my, why do I keeps going to different tools, which is really weird.
You're on eraser.
I know. I'm not doing that though. Okay. I want to make I'm just going to make a blob because that's going to be my clipping mask. And this is now a smaller brush. So it'll look different. I use this like I did and I'll actually do the demo in here too. I did an old ship or whatever as an illustration, and then I kind of tore up the edges so it feels a little more like an old, and then I put some texture over it and all that crap. Okay, so here's my marks. I'm going to pull this underneath what I'm going to apply it to, and then I just hold Option and go in between the layers right there. See how it pops up?
Oh.
And I click it, and there it is. It applies my mask. So in this case, it looks a little more brush strokey. Right?
Yes. Cool. Thank you.
Okay, so all these things I think will come in handy for the poster project. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, any questions about all this?
Yeah,
And I will
quick
put this
question.
zoom up as soon as I render it. Yeah?
I have a quick question.
Uh-huh.
For the camera exercise, if we already finished it, do you just want us to resubmit it for Wednesday as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just get the main things done, where you've cleaned it up, you reflected it. And that's it. Okay. And then I just mark it off and we're done with it because I want to get onto this where you're actually making something. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So think of your subject matter for your poster and then just start thumbnailing. Okay.
Are you going to have 2 folders for us to submit our thumbnails and the camera?
You know what I'll do? Yes, that's probably a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll put 2 folder links. I'll just put the word, thumbnails, thumbnail folder, camera folder.
Got it. Cool.
That's a good idea. Otherwise it'll get confusing. Oh, and if you do your thumbnails on paper, just take a cell phone picture of them. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So you can do them on
Okay.
paper. I don't care. And again, I just want to know what's in them. Like, okay, oh, I see you're putting a person here, you're putting a boat down here, you're doing that. Go look at a bunch of movie posters, get inspired by it, or just posters or whatever you like looking at, and put a little thought into it. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, guys, I'm gonna let you go.
I have one question.
Yeah, what's that?
When we're making our posts or sketches, do they all have to be the same movie, or can they be like?
No, you can do multiples.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
I have
it's
another-
wide open, you guys. Creatively, it's really wide open. Again, I just don't want. Try and get yourself out of your comfort zone a little bit. Like I get people in every class, like in here, and like everything they do is the same crap. Everything they do is, I don't know, Marvel movies or whatever, and it's just that stuff gets old after a while. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like push yourself. You want to push yourself so you get versatile. Okay. And push yourself out of your comfort zone. And also like some of the times they do that stuff and I go, does this look like a movie or like a poster to you? It looks like this wouldn't be a poster. It's too amateurish and silly. Like the subject matter is too silly, So, and then I'll start showing you how to plus them. Okay. As we start working, I love it when we're in a project because we can start learning new tools and we can start learning to plus. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you guys, I'm gonna let you go, and I will see you on Wednesday.
Sounds
Yeah?
good. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks,
Bye.
you guys.
Bye.
Everything looked
Bye
good.
bye.
by the
Thank
way.
you.